Hello, my name is Purple Rain. I am coach of the Damascus Driftblims in the VBLS, and this is my Season 10 tier list for the Sky Conference. I'm going to be starting with the Tornadus division, I believe, and let's get started. This is the Liberty Lux Rays. So it starts off, the first pick was Murkrow, Cleavor, Tinkaton, Tauros Paldea Aqua, Bramblegast, Rotom Heat, Toedscruel, Dragalge, Slowbro, Galar, Ditto, and Frostmoth. So what jumps out to me to start with? No Pokemon over 100 speed. Now, important caveat to that is the Murkrow does exist. And Murkrow, as you know, I'm sure, is really just a Tailwind bot. So Murkrow in that way has kind of like makes up for that. And there's some Pokemon that go with it, right? Like you have Bramblegast, who obviously pairs really well with a priority Tailwind. And then Cleavor really appreciates fast Tailwind, Rotom Heat can. But this team also has a really good Trick Room option with Dragalge, Slowbro being a good Trick Room setter that can then function within it well as well. Dragalge, Frostmoth. If the opponent is trying to run like a room service thing, Ditto can be good in that situation. Yeah, so there is some stuff I see here that I like, being like a good slow mode, and the type chart isn't horrible, I don't think. Like there's some good fire like even though there are some there are some net weaknesses like to fire, there are some good fire resist to go along with that. And those Pokemon will come a lot. Like I would expect Tauros Aqua and potentially Dragalge or Rotom Heat, or I would expect Tauros Aqua really and Rotom Heat to come to a lot of games, and Dragalge will come to some, and all of them are like real fire resists. Like they're bulky enough to take advantage of that. I also like that this team has Intimidate, given their defense is significantly weaker than their special defense stat. Although it's still overall not a very bulky team. That's what happens when you have stuff like Murkrow, right? It's just not going to be super bulky. But that is also not taking into account that Ditto's stats are far lower than they actually should be. But I think I like this team mostly. Murkrow plus you have a secondary Tailwind setter in Cleavor. Tinkaton is a really solid fake out. Obviously, great typing, good Pokemon. But I'm just wondering, is this team too? Is the fast mode too predictable? Like, if your opponent, like, will Murkrow be forced to wear Covert Cloak, so it always gets Tailwind up? And if it is, how big of a deal is it that it's gonna die after the first turn, basically? Or will opponents just end up ignoring it? Because that's the problem with Murkrow. Once it does its thing, if it doesn't have a good second move, like a good to click, which sometimes it just doesn't. There's nothing, you don't really want it out in the field that long. Opponent can just ignore it, so it doesn't matter if you have Tailwind up. It's effectively a 2v1. I'm not super worried about that since you have stuff like Tauros Aqua, which can be a really good switch into a Murkrow slot. Yeah, I think this team is overall very solid. Slowbro obviously has the quick draw, quick claw stuff potential, although I don't think that's going to be happening too much. But yeah, so I like the speed tiers here. I like most of the Pokemon individually. I will say I guess you can justify 2 grass types and 2 poison types. Generally, those are 2 of the weaker typings to have on a team. This team does have some overall kind of bad types, right? Like, you don't love bug or rock. You don't love grass types. You don't love poison types. Obviously, Ditto is whatever type you need it to be, but like, I don't know. I mean, you have the Fairy Steel Dragon with Fairy and Steel and Tinkaton and Dragon and Dragalge, although I think I mentioned this last time. I think it's much better to have them on separate Pokemon but it's still, whatever. Tinkaton's got really good typing. I don't know what else to say about this team. I don't think I have a lot. I like all of these Pokemon just seem solidly good, or good enough. I would have liked, something on turn 1 that can threaten higher speeds. I think that would have improved this team a lot. So you're not reliant on Murkrow getting Tailwind if you getting Tailwind up if you want to have that level of speed turn 1. Because in prep, I feel like this team is easy to calc speed tiers for, right? Which means the opponent's going to be getting better stats overall because they'll be able to invest in bulk more easily. Yeah, I mean, this team is fine. I'm not super high on it. I don't see any super glaring weaknesses, like a lacking slow mode or whatever. It's fine. I'm going to put it in the B tier, I think, and this is this team is a Liberty Luxrays. Oop. It's a B tier team. It's solid. It's not bad, but it's not great. Next, I have the Cincinnati Minchinos, I think is how it's pronounced. And right off the bat, boom, you've got Urshifu Rapid and Screamtail. I think that combo... I think those two Pokemon are both really good. Urshifu Rapid is obviously insane. The ability to have no protects against it is crazy. Screamtail is a fantastic Pokemon with so many different ways of being a great support for something like Urshifu. Like, I can just see Screamtail Booster Energy, Urshifu Rapid out on the field turn 1. The opponent feels super pressured to not protect, obviously. Like, because you have Screamtail both and Urshifu Rapid, so they're going to be using their best moves. You protect against Urshifu specifically most of the time. Protect Urshifu, maybe even just double protect. They use some good moves. Now you can have Screamtail disable whatever the move is they were going to use. Their next turn is probably going to be wasted since they're probably going to click that same move again. If they protect now, you can encore them. Really just an insane amount of pressure on turn 1. With those two, and because you have the booster energy option, your max speed is through the roof. But not to mention you have Jolteon for that, whose speed is also obviously very good. But on top of those two, you have Corviknight. Corviknight's a great Pokemon. It is a slower Tailwind, but you can, still get a Tailwind out of it. It's not bad. And it has Mirror Armor, which is an incredible ability to have versus, really in general. Or maybe not. Incredible is overstating it, but a very good ability. Intimidates, just shrug them off. Put them back onto the opposing Pokemon. And you can do Iron Defense Body Press stuff. You've got a great typing. You can even just be a Brave Bird, Iron Head, Bulk Up. Corviknight can do a ton. And what I love about Corviknight on this team is that I feel like it's actually a really strong setup threat. As I mentioned before, there's the Iron Defense Body Press stuff, but even Bulk Up, which I believe it gets, I would be very surprised if it didn't. Yeah, it does. Then if you're bulking up with your Corviknight next to something that's been encored or disabled with their move that would hit Corviknight really hard, then you can just bulk up and then roost off any other damage it'll take while you inevitably win the game. I think that's a really, really strong strategy for this team. Delphox is a great fire type to have, just very pretty fast, good special attacker, solid. It's got the solid move pool. Brute Bonnet, obviously with redirection, something you can't ignore, and you can't really just run goggles like you can with Amoonguss and just expect it to be useless against that Pokemon, because it also has a really, really large attack stat. 127, which is just it can throw out sucker punches because it's slow, or if you get this thing in Trick Room, which this team can support, then you're solid. You have Alolan Muck, and I'm just gonna put Gumshoes in there too. That's really your Trick Room sweepers, right? Is Alolan Muck, Gumshoes, and Brute Bonnet. What I like about this is there's a problem here, which is that 2 of these Pokemon are just beaten by fighting types. Brute being Brute Bonnet and Alolan Muck. Alolan Muck obviously has a great typing, so it's not weak to fighting, but it is weak to ground. I guess it's nice that Brute Bonnet resists ground type attacks. Gumshoes is obviously not a Pokemon that's going to come most weeks. It's, kind of it's just every now and then when you think it has a good matchup. I think it's going to Final Gambit stuff probably. I believe it gets Final Gambit. It does not get Final Gambit. I don't know what Gumshoes is doing, actually. Is it a Belly Drummer? Nope. I don't know what Gumshoes does, to be honest. I think it's probably just clicking normal. Yeah, it has adaptability, so it's just clicking strong normal moves. And it's gonna do some damage into teams that don't have a particularly good normal type matchup. But otherwise, it's just not coming much. Oricorio, I know you get all of them, but I still think overall it's kind of a weak Pokemon. Like, it doesn't do enough for me to say it justifies its place on most teams. Because, I think it's good on teams that have a relatively bad type chart and might need or bad offensive type chart, to where it'll struggle having coverage, because then it'll give you some key coverage sometimes, and key stab coverage most importantly. Poltegeist is really interesting, but otherwise it's just kind of meh, and I don't think this team really has that problem. It has important attacking types to me. Maybe it was missing, I don't know, it's missing ground, but I don't think Oricorio helps with that unless you're going to Terra Ground Revelation Dance. Anyways, Poltegeist is, it's so versatile. I worked a lot with Kodamarin last season, and so I saw a lot of the flaws with Poltegeist and why it has problems. But I'm just thinking about how it can do so much. It can Trick Room, it can Shell Smash, it can just throw out strong Shadow Balls. There's a lot it can do. So I don't think it's bad for the point total it was gotten at it. The one thing I do worry about with this team is Urshifu. You have Urshifu Rapid, which I think wants a fast Tailwind Setter, and you don't have a fast Tailwind Setter. Now, it's not the end of the world. I mentioned this on Kodamarin's team too. You can Scarf it, and there's not a ton of other Pokemon here that would like Scarf. I think Delphox would a good amount of the time, but it doesn't have to have Scarf. And so if you just end up Scarfing Urshifu Rapid, you're perfectly happy. And I think that this team, if you can find ways to have Urshifu in the back and reliably get up Tailwind early with something like Corviknight, then you're really happy with the Urshifu having a Sash or something. Maybe even a Covert Cloaker or whatever. Whatever item you want to give it. Anyways, I think that overall it's a strong team. It has good typing. It's not super weak to anything, and what it is weak to, water. You've got 2 high tiers that are really solid against it. So you're not super worried. Let me just get rid of Salandit since it's not a real Pokemon, and Oricorio since it's not coming much. You do have a little bit of a weakness to ground. with these three, but yeah, it's not a huge deal because you have the immunity and you have the resist on Fruit Bonnet. Yeah, overall, I really like this team. I think Urshifu Rapid's going to be able to do a ton. I think Jolteon can switch into any electric types that Urshifu Rapid was going to take. I like Screamtail. Yeah, I mean, I like this team. I like this team overall. So, I'm going to put it in A tier. I think it belongs in A tier. It's pretty good. Yeah. Maybe I'll change the order and stuff later, but that's where it starts. So now we have the other Urshifu Single Strike, and this is the Phoenix Suns. This team is crazy. This team's top end is bonkers. Urshifu Single, Tornadus Therian being a Pokemon I was going to get, so I think it is quite good. I understand why it was taken second, despite being only 13 points. Chi-Yu, Toxtricity, Gothorita, Arboliva, Samurott, Stonejourner, Darkspun, Dugtrio, and Banette. Or Dugtrio, Alola, and Banette. So, one of the things to look at is this team actually is a good amount of physical attackers. Urshifu, I guess Tornadus can be because it has 100 attack, and Samurott's a physical attacker. Stonejourner's a physical attacker. Dugtrio's a physical attacker. Darkspun's a physical attacker. So the only other Pokemon that really take advantage of Chi-Yu's ability is Toxtricity and Arboliva. And I think one of the problems this team might have is that Arboliva really wants to be under Trick Room. And you have a good Trick Room setter in Gothorita, but Chi-Yu does not want to be under Trick Room. It's 100 speed, it's fast. Or at least fast enough that you're generally not putting it in Trick Room. And it's frail enough physically that you don't want to have it in Trick Room. So now you're kind of stuck because you're without one of your special attackers, and your only other two special attackers are Tornadus Therian and Toxtricity. Only other real special attackers, I'll say. And so you're not getting the most benefit out of Chi-Yu. And if your opponent has stronger special attackers, I think it's hard to say you're giving a benefit to them because Chi-Yu's lack of special defense, its Beads of Ruin, doesn't affect itself. But you kind of are. You're not creating the most beneficial asymmetrical situation of a symmetrical effect. Again, that being said, Urshifu's a great Pokemon. You have Fast Tailwind, which both Urshifu and Chi-Yu really appreciate. You have Trapping with Gothorita, which can trap something with Chi-Yu or with Urshifu. And if you can't protect, which you won't be able to, against Urshifu and you're trapped, you're stuck. And so how do you get out of that? Well, you're a Ghost type. But if you're a Ghost type, you have to leave, right? You have to switch out. And if you're a Ghost type, then Urshifu Single is going to be hitting you really hard with a Dark type move. So you have to switch out into a non-Ghost type, which means that Pokemon is now trapped. And then maybe this team can reposition to Chi-Yu and have a really good matchup into that Pokemon. Or reposition to something else that has a really good matchup into that Pokemon later. So, I don't know. I think this team functions very interestingly. The one thing is it is missing, I would say, just one more slow threat. Although Samurott can work in Trick Room, and Toxtricity probably can as well. And the other thing I haven't mentioned is Chi-Yu can Lava Plume next to Darkspun, which makes a really good team. This to me is it's really, really, really solid all around. You have a fast Tailwind, you have strong attackers, you have trapping. Yeah, I'm not sure what I could say this team is missing. The one thing to note, I think it's a kind of big problem, is the ground weakness, and it's not because you have a net ground weakness. It's because Chi-Yu, Toxtricity are two ground weaknesses, right? And Tornadus Therian is your only Pokemon who I think you want out, not under Trick Room, that does well into it most of the time. Because I don't think you want Dugtrio, and you don't really want Stonejourner out on the field. So and Arbolive is a pure Trick Room mon, in my opinion. So you don't really, when you have two such important mons that are so weak to ground, I think that's kind of limiting when you don't have another, like when you don't have two strong immunities or resist. You only have the one. That being said, this team is fantastic. You've got a really good fake out in Gothorita. You've got really good trapping. You've got great combos, and you have the ability to and a fast tailwind and really strong hits. Yeah, basically this team has almost everything. This is where is the logo? The Phoenix Suns. There we go. It's going into S tier for me. At least as of now, I would consider it an S tier Pokemon. Now, let's go to the Golden Goats, Jace's team. I have watched Jace's team review, draft review, so everything here is under 15 points. And it shows. First pick Hatterene. You know, it's a good Pokemon to set up Trick Room. This team has just a really good slow mode, I think, with Fungus, Hatterene, Mudsdale. If this team wants to operate in Trick Room, it totally can. This team also has a very real fast mode, with Kilowattrel setting up a fast Tailwind. Persian for the fake out if you need it. Tauros and Basculegion, I would say, are the main like super fast modes. I guess I don't really get what Persian is doing on this team. I think it very rarely comes over Morgrem. Morgrem just seems better to me most of the time. I know Persian gets like fast Icy Winds or whatever, but I don't know how valuable that is. Maybe it'll prove valuable enough for 5 points, but I don't see it initially. This team also does have 2 normal types. I know why Stantler is here too. It's another Trick Room setter, which has entirely different resists and weaknesses than Hatterene. But you know, it's not. I mean, never mind. I don't know why I'm insulting the Stantler. Stantler's fine. I don't like the Persian here. Goodra is a good special wall. It's a good dragon type overall. It has Sap Sipper into matchups that require it. It has hydration, so when you get rain up, which I'm assuming this team can get pretty easily, right? Because you have the Basculegion. Yeah, you have tons of rain dances. I guess Persian's there as a rain dance Pokemon, actually. In which case, if Persian's mainly here as a fast rain dance, I like it a lot. I just think that's good. That has some value. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I like this team. It's got good speed tiers, really good speed tiers, actually. It has a good type chart. Only weak to ice, and I don't know, most ice attacks are going to be special, and Goodra's not really weak to them. This team is super wide, so prepping against it is really hard. It can bring screens with Morgrem 1 week, and it can be fast Rain Dance, Tailwind with Kilowattrel into Disquake mode, especially if you invest some speed into Mudsdale. Now you're outspeeding stuff under the Tailwind. Yeah, I think this team's actually really versatile, quite good. Golden Goats. I am going to put this team... It's either low A or high B. I think I'm going to put this team in high B right now. But, you know, there's always room for me to change my mind. This is probably Basculegion female. I'm now realizing. Because that is the one that is under 15 points. and this has the Basculegion. So right off, this is the Swift Swim team. I'm remembering this team has so many Swift Swim Pokemon, so many Pokemon that love the rain. This is the skilled Snivies, and first thing to note is Thundurus has Prankster Rain Dance with this team, and then you have Basculegion as a strong sweeper in the rain, Overquill as a an entirely different type of sweeper in the rain, but still one nonetheless. They cover each other's weaknesses well. Dark types can't hit Overquill. Okay, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I think that's actually it in terms of their weaknesses and resistances. Oh no, they resist grass type as well. Any grass moves. Yeah, but that's basically it. They also resist ghosts that are super effective on Basculegion. They pair really well together. You've got a really good fake out in Salazzle. You've got a solid enough ground type in Donphan, so you have a Disquake mode with Thundurus, Donphan. This team is very physically offensive, so I like that you have the Defiant. Appleton helps towards a slow endgame. It also gives you your it finishes off the Fire, Water, Grass core. And it gives you... This team has a really, really solid Trick Room mode now that I'm looking at it. It just doesn't have a good Trick Room setter. It has Espeon. God, if you got rid of this Floatzel, because Floatzel's redundant with Basculegion on the field, and I do think there is some value in redundancy. I know we had this conversation on the Discord earlier, where some people want to say that Floatzel is basically pointless when you have Basculegion. I think there are some times where having both, just to purely overwhelm your opponent, does bring some value. Because they do have to spend some resources to deal with the first one, and then you have the second one sitting in the back. Maybe they don't have enough prep prepared to stop both. That being said, I don't think that's optimal use of value and use of points. I think if you get rid of Floatzel for like a really good Trick Room setter or something, or get rid of Floatzel Espeon and get them in a Trick Room setter and a Bagmon or something, I don't know how it would have to work exactly. This team would be so scary, because you'd have to respect the fast mode with Rain, and you'd have to respect the slow mode with Appleton, Copperajah, and Donphan. That's terrifying. That's such a headache to prep against. But as it is, because you're missing that really good Trick Room setter, I struggle to I don't feel afraid when I look at this team. I just figure out how to beat this fast mode and then have one answer to Espeon on the team. And if I see that you brought a full Trick Room mode, I'm just like, okay, time to bring out the Espeon answer and win. So with that being said, I think right now it's just a low B team. Maybe high B. This is the skilled Snivies. It gets somewhere in B. If you got a proper Trick Room setter, it jumps to high A for me. Somewhere in there. I just think it's such a big deal to be able to really threaten that Trick Room mode when you have Mons that are as good in Trick Room as you do. With Appleton, Copperajah, and Donphan. But overall, I mean, I like the team. I like how it functions. Maybe I don't as much. Okay, I need to think about this a little bit more, because I don't like Heracross without Tailwind. It's just such an awkward speed tier. 85 is just not very good. I think I just watched Poppin's video, and I believe Poppin said that 85 is the average speed for Pokemon. And if 85 is your average speed, then you're getting outsped by half the Pokemon in the format. And if you're getting outsped by half the Pokemon, you're not doing very much before you get hit. And when you have a quad weakness, that means you're dying before you're getting a move off. And if you're dying before you get a move off, then you're doing nothing. So how do you prevent that? You need Tailwind. This team does not have a Tailwind setter. That's a big problem. I don't know. Yeah, this team is low B for me. This team is low B, borderline C, but I think it's low B. If you get yourself a proper Trick Room setter, it now jumps to high B now that I recognize it doesn't have a good Tailwind. But I think if you somehow manage to get yourself like get out of the pure rain mode and instead go to get yourself a good Tailwind setter and get a good Trick Room setter, I could see this team going places. But as of now, I don't believe it. I don't buy it. This is the Wolfpack Welders. I don't know what's wrong with Berserker. I couldn't get it working. I don't know. But just know Berserker's here. And it's, okay. So what do I immediately notice about this team? Cress Fluttermane. Of course, are, they're both good Pokemon, but they work in opposite ways. I feel like Fluttermane really... So Fluttermane's really good because it wants to blow stuff up. Cresselia plays more towards a long game. And that's not to say Fluttermane can't work in a long game, it's just that's not what it does in long game teams. It still just kind of blows stuff up as a fast option. For an overall long game team, so it just doesn't play towards the same win condition. But that doesn't mean they can't work together in a team. I'm noticing a water weakness, but that doesn't matter because you have Torkoal, or it matters significantly less. You also, and so now time to talk about the Sun mode since I mentioned Torkoal. You have Torkoal, Scovillain, and Jumpluff. So 2 Chlorophyll Pokemon is kind of awkward because you can't have them both out on the same time because you have Torkoal in one of the slots, most of the time anyways. You also, given you have Torkoal, Fluttermane's super nice. And you love this team might be a kind of a hard Trick Roomy team too. It's not really a hard Trick Room, right? Because your only hard Trick Room Pokemon is Torkoal, but it's got the option of you don't need to run Booster Energy to get the Photosynthesis boost because you have Torkoal for Fluttermane. Trick Room's nice with Torkoal too in Cresselia. I'm not sure that you need that bulky of a Trick Room setter that doesn't do much next to a Torkoal. Crocodile's nice because it has Intimidate. Your team doesn't have the best defense in the world, so that makes sense to me. But as I was saying before, with the 2 Chlorophyll users, what are you really doing here? When are you using Scovillain, I guess would be my question. Because it seems like you don't need the extra Fire-type damage. It's a nice Grass type, I guess. But Jumpluff, just it sets Tailwind really fast. It has fast Sleep Powders. It's just really annoying Pokemon to deal with. And it obviously boosts your speed tiers up a lot. So I believe in Jumpluff here. I believe less in Scovillain. I don't know why it exists. And I don't know what Bombardier is doing here. I get it's a good Pokemon to have. It's effectively a Rock type. Maybe that's it. You wanted some Rock coverage. But your team is really weak to Rocks already. This team is really weak to Rocks, so I don't love that. The adding another Rock weakness. Yeah, but it's really tough to go against a Torkoal, Jumpluff, Fluttermane team. That's really tough to plan against. You have a good Fake Out in Berserker. It's a good Steel type. I guess that mitigates the Rock weakness here a good amount. Especially because Dugtrio isn't really a Rock resist. It is, but it doesn't function as one. I don't know. This team can function in 2 modes. It's not Bad. Fluttermane is, I think, one of the best Pokemon in the format, arguably the best. In my opinion, I think it's the best. I'm gonna put it. So you can't go wrong with a Fluttermane team, especially with Intimidate, since you're to help bulk it up effectively. Yeah, I'm gonna put this team in B tier. Again. This is another B tier team to me. Sorry, this was the Wolfpack Welders. No, it's an A tier team. It's an A tier team. I know I haven't been speaking about it that highly, but you have Intimidate for your Fluttermane. You have Torkoal in low speed, and a really solid Trick Room setter. You have Fake Out, which you need. You have Jumpluff with the Torkoal too. My concern would be, I guess, are you ever not running Cress, Flutter, Crocodile, Torkoal, something? 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, maybe even Jumpluff something. Because you're never bringing Shuppet, I don't think. You're very rarely bringing Dugtrio or Oinkologne. You're probably very rarely bringing Scovillain and Bombardier. Like, none of the rest of these Pokemon feel at all good. Like, I don't know when you're excited to bring any of those. So that's, I think, my holdup. Is I really like the top end and I really don't like the bottom end. Because I don't think you love bringing Berserker. You don't hate it, but it's not great. It is, I guess, a steel resist for Fluttermane or something. But that's about it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to put this team in the B tier, top of B tier. Right below Golden Goats. You know what? I'm going to move Golden Goats up to bottom of A. The more I'm looking at this, the more I just think that they're a team I like a little bit more. Next, we have the Waterloo Wormadams. This is Steve's team, so it's not going to be used in any way I expect. Which means that my ranking of it is almost entirely pointless because it was built with a restriction in mind that I don't know and won't be able and will drastically change how good this team ends up being. That being said, I think this team is quite good. Obviously, look at the type chart, it looks very good. The only Pokemon in here that you never bring is Meryl, so, like, let's get rid of that. Sure, Ice Weakness, who cares? Dark Weakness, yeah, I'm just making sure I actually don't care about the Ice Weakness. Yeah, you kind of do, but it's not the end of the world. Dark Weakness, you care about more. Because into Dragapult's a Pokemon you want to bring a lot, Indeedee is a Pokemon you want to bring a lot, and Articuno Galar is a Pokemon you want to bring a lot. So the Dark Weakness matters, for sure. That being said, let's look at the modes on this team. Tinglu Dondozo. You know, if you played Reg C, you saw the annoying stuff Tinglu and Dondozo could do together. I expect to see that sometimes. Articuno, the Hisuian Articuno, is so versatile. You can use it pretty effectively as an Intimidate Pokemon, and you can use it very effectively as a Rockhead Head Smash Pokemon as well. So that has a ton of versatility, and it it helps push towards that Firewater Grass core, which is then filled out by Rotom-Mow. I think Rotom-Mow is underrated. I think it's quite good. It offers you, if you're willing to Terra Electric, which I think you should be sometimes, then you will have build your own Electros, Articuno Galar. So the top end of this team is very physically offensive, and even the back end is pretty physically offensive. So having competitive on this team is huge. You now have a Tailwind and Trick Room setter / Imprisoner. I think it gets imprisoned, I'm almost sure. Yeah, it does. So that's huge. Fortress is just a slow guy, works in Trick Room well. This team works in Trick Room well too, because you have Tinglu, Fortress, Dondozo. You can just you can throw like a Life Orb on Dondozo, Choice Band on Tinglu, have Articuno Galar set up Trick Room, put it next to Tinglu. Tinglu can Earthquake. You're flying, so you don't care. I don't know. I think this really works. Dragapult I love as a fast mode. It can set up screens for your bulkier Pokemon too. It can Dragon Dars. It can be physical. It can be special. You can have Clear Body, or you could have Infiltrator on weeks where you expect your opponent to set up a lot of substitutes or something. And you have a Defiant Mon and Phalanx. I don't know. I think this team is really good. It's solidly. It offers so much versatility, but its versatility doesn't come at the cost of excelling. Articuno, because like Articuno can do a ton of different stuff. Arcanine can do a ton of different stuff, and Tinglu and Dondozo on their own can do different things, but together they offer a mode, and they work well as just slow, bulky guys in Trick Room that will. Be heavy hitters, and you have Tailwind options so that your fast mode works with all of these middling speed tiered Pokemon, but you're not reliant on that for turn 1, because turn 1, if you need a fast Pokemon, you have Dragapult. It gives you a fast threat. Yeah, this team is great. This team is really, really good. This is the Waterloo Dams. I want to put it in A or S tier. I also love the oh, sorry, I don't know why I'm going all the way back here. I love the Indeedee. Oh yeah, the Indeedee next to Dragapult, or the Indeedee for the switch in on any ghost moves into Dragapult and stuff. You know, they cover each other, or Indeedee covers Dragapult well. And it's a funny Encore Pokemon that clicks Encore. And it can sometimes fake out. Yep. That's basically my opinion of it. I think this team is really good. And it might end up in S tier. I don't know. Yeah, it might end up in S tier. The Pittsburgh Pawniards. So it starts with Landorus Therian, Goldengo, Scizor, Moltres Galar, Gallade, Toxapex, Knacklestack, Ice-Q, Mousehold, Love Disc, Fletchinder. So, this team has a pretty fast Pokemon in Mousehold, so it's got a fastish mode that you need to respect. It's got all these slow Pokemon. Sorry for the yawns, I'm really tired. It's got all these slow Pokemon, but none of them are threats. So this team doesn't really have a solid Trick Room option, in my opinion. You don't really want to be Trick Rooming just for Knacklestack, or for Toxapex, or for Ice-Q. So, I don't know, there's no real Trick Room mode here. You're only, and even if there were, your only Trick Room setter is Gallade. Does it have Imprison? I believe it does, but don't quote me on that. It does, so you can imprison Trick Room. But if you're imprisoning Trick Room, you're not using Gallade's best thing, which is just like sharpness killing things. The other thing I noticed is your only fast Tailwind, because I don't consider Moltres Galar fast. Your only fast Tailwind's Fletchinder, and that's not that fast. Well, obviously it is because it's priority, but if your opponent has Fake Out or any priority move, it's going to knock Gale Wings out of Fletchinder, or Fletchinder out of Gale Wings, and then it's a slow Tailwind now. And I think without a consistent fast Tailwind, Gallade really struggles. So, which means you're going to have to Scarf Gallade. But which is okay, I guess. since Gallade wants to be kind of wants to be scarfed anyways. But if your opponent knows Gallade is scarfed, it's much easier to build around and to play against. Landorus is a nice Intimidate Pokemon, but this team is already so defensive. I guess a lot of that is in the lower tiers, so like you're probably not going to be seeing Ice-Q, Toxapex, or Knuckle Stack that much. So it's less defensive than the stats look. But that is kind of a thing. You've got Scizor, Goldengo, Moltres. You know, I like Moltres. If you're gonna, my worry is you're gonna need to bring a Tailwind most weeks, and Moltres I feel like wants to be bulky, Assault Vest or Citrus, and if you're spending a move slot on Tailwind, then you're not using it on an attacking move or Roost or Protect or something, and which will limit your options long term. I don't like Moltres Galar as a Tailwind setter most of the time. This team also does have a glaring weakness to Electric. Now that I'm looking at it, never mind. 3 of the 4 are fake. The only real weakness is Moltres. Weakness to water is the same. That being said, stuff like the water weakness, it doesn't look bad, right? Because only Landorus is weak to it. But you have no real water resist, because Toxapex isn't coming most weeks, and Love Disc is not a water resist, it's too frail. And also should not be coming most weeks. So it's not your team doesn't function well. This team doesn't function well against strong water type teams because they can just like slam wave crashes into this team. Also, there are 2 Pokemon. Yeah, the bigger deal, but that you know, that's a small example. Who cares about waters? Like just Landorus. Now let's look at fire types. You have a 4 times weakness to it in Scizor and a 2 times weakness to it in Goldengo. Yeah, it looks fine because you have 4 resists, but those 4 resists are Toxapex, Knuckle Stack, Love Disc, Fletchinder. Those Pokemon are not good defensively. Or they're good defensively, but they're not good offensively, so they shouldn't be coming to a VGC match most of the time. So with that being said, now you have a 4 times weakness and a 2 times weakness to a common attacking type and no good defensive types to dissuade them from bringing that attacking type. And even if they do bring them, or when they do bring them, you have no type that can switch into take those hits well. That's what I'm worried about with this team. This team is kind of built because, again, the fast mode is kind of Fletchinder, like in terms of if you want a fast Tailwind. It's built around Fletchinder. So because it's built around a Mon that you don't want coming most weeks, I feel like this team wants to bulk out. But if this team wants to bulk out, then a pretty glaring problem comes up when you see like, oh, I have these weaknesses that don't have strong resists. And so I don't think I'll be able to articulate that point much better or do anything else with it. So I think I am going to be putting this middle of B tier. Like lower end, low, middle of B tier. This is the Snivies, right? Yeah, I think that's where I want this team. Oh, and I think that is it for the Tornadus division. I will be back in 1 second with the Thundurus division. Okay, time for the Thundurus division, I believe. And this is the Grandma's Togekisses. So it has Ursaluna, Hisuian, Typhlosion, Klefki, Noivern, Mesprit, Enamorous Therian, Decidueye, Bruxish, Colossal, and Electric. So, oh, and Shellos. first thing that comes to mind when I see this team is, of course, Trick Room. You have a really solid Trick Room mode with an Amorous Therian Ursaluna, right? That's where all your heavy points are. And they are both very good Pokemon. And you have consistent Trick Room setting with Klefki, and you can even imprison the Imprisoned Trick Room, so you have very consistent Trick Room setups, in my opinion. However, I still think on heavy Trick Room modes, and you have Whirlwind from Noivern, of course, to help with that too, which Tsukaba mentioned in his video. However, you still need a good fast mode, I think. Just a pretty good fast mode. And that's where I don't like this team that much. Because you have Noivern. What's the ideal fast mode, right? It's Noivern, Typhlosion, and you Tailwind Erupt. The problem is that's really easy to plan around. I think Daddy mentioned this in his video, where he was like he wanted a more deep fast mode than just Noivern Typhlosion, because Noivern Typhlosion, like I mentioned, easy to plan around. If you can Sucker Punch Typhlosion, that's going to be really strong because it's a ghost type. Or just any priority on Typhlosion really weakens it. You can fake out the Noivern, and if you have something else that can outspeed it, you can just KO the Noivern. And let's look at the other relatively fast threats. Bruxish, I mean, I would really hesitate to call it a threat. You know, it has some stuff. It has Strong Jaw. It's not horrible, but it's not great in my opinion. Mesprit is more of like a slow setup-y Pokemon. Like I know it's, when I say slow, I mean longer game than initial threat turn 1. So yeah, I think the fast mode is lacking a little bit of depth, but the Trick Room mode is clearly robust. So if you get a Trick Room consistently, this team is going to be terrifying. You even have a mini Disquake combo with Electric and Ursaluna if you want. It's just so funny to imagine small Electric next to this giant bear Ursaluna. Anyways, sorry about that. But you have some Aqua Jet Colossal stuff, which is cool, I guess, as another fast mode. But I think that's also gimmicky. Yeah, this team, I mean, I think it's a good Trick Room. I think it's gimmicky fast mode and fast mode that can be built around, but I'm not sure I'd go as far as to call it gimmicky in Noivern Typhlosion. So I think I'm going to put the Grandma's Togekisses in B tier. Yeah, I think that's where it belongs, in my opinion. Next, we've got the Apex Alolan Marowaks. So, this is tough. This is interesting. Really weird start from Ray. Obviously, fantastic coach. I believe, has won twice in a row, but very interesting start. With Weavile, then into Lucario, then Skeledirge, Rotom Wash, Landorus, the Dunsparce, Avalugg, Hisuian, Slowking Galar, Chestnut, Regidrago, Skiploom. So, starting off, the one thing I noticed, you have 2 quad fighting weak Pokemon. Wow, that's a lot. Neither one are super prominent, I guess, when in terms of coming to games. Although, if it's Weavile is your first overall pick, it should be. So that's tough. Landorus is a good Pokemon. That's something that jumps out to me is you have really strong Landorus. The type chart looks pretty good to me. You have real fire resists for your fire weak Pokemon. Let's say Skiploom isn't real, and Avila Kasuian maybe isn't that real. And you have real fairy resist. I mean, this team just seems solidly built, but it's not like scary in the same way that some other teams are. Because you don't have that fast tailwind for your Regidrago, so Regidrago doesn't seem like it fits into this team that well to me. Like, sure, you have some fake outs, but I'm not sure Regidrago is actually going to be able to do that much. Landorus, it's solid. It's got sheer force. It's a strong special attacker. Good ground type. You've got your Fire, Water, Grass core. They don't share too many weaknesses either. I actually don't know if they share any. Chestnut and Rotom Wash obviously pair well together, with one resisting flying, while one's quad weak to it. I don't know. I mean, I like this. I don't hate this team, but it just seems very standard, like good at doing general stuff. It has Rage Powder and Skiploom, stab body presses with Chestnut's another important thing to take account of. But I just don't know how this team is playing. Like, is this team like a setting? I guess it is like a slow setup team with Skeledirge, Torch Songing, Rotom Wash, Nasty Plotting, Chestnut, Iron Defense, Body Pressing, and then it's got some bursty Pokemon with Regidrago and Landorus, but I don't know how those two fit into the overall theme of the team. It's not horrible or anything, but it just doesn't seem like it's all super cohesive to a long game. Or a short game. This team does have good speed tiers though. Really fast with 125, and then some really slow Pokemon down at 30, and a legitimate Trick Room threat, and legitimate fast mode threat. Although the lack of Tailwind doesn't help. So I'm going to put the Apex, Alolan, Marowak in B tier. Right next to the Togekiss Grandmas. I think I'm going to put it here. Below them. Let me just double check my opinion on that, though. No, I like it more. I like it more. In fact, it's probably going to go, it's going to go here. It's above the Liberty Luxuries. Next. Oh my god, what a team. The NorCal Noibats. When I first was looking at this team, I was blown away. I think this is great. So Grimmsnarl, fantastic Pokemon. Clearly a great round 1 choice. Arguably the best fake-out user in Draft. One of the 2 best fake-out users on Ladder and in this format. Hisuian Gudra, I've said my piece on it before. I think it's overrated. I think it's kind of one-dimensional, maybe two-dimensional, but like definitely not that scary of a Pokemon. If it wants to be a setup threat and if it wants to be an Assault Vest threat, then I think you're just making yourself too weak to... You are incentivizing physical moves too much on a Pokemon that is already incentivizing that when they're not Iron Defensed up. And I just don't think that it offers enough threat with its moves to be able to justify such a high pick. But Rillaboom I think is a perfectly good round 1 pick. So to get it and Grimmsnarl is really good, and assuming Gudra as a 3rd round pick I think is kind of fine. I think I wouldn't take it until the 4th or 5th, but I see why people could take it in the 3rd. And I think it's a little overpriced, but to each their own. But Rillaboom, speaking of Rillaboom, it is the best fake out user, I think, in not in Draft. on ladder, the second best fake out user in draft. So you have the two best fake outs, and they both have pivot moves with U-turn and Rillaboom, and Parting Shot and Grimmsnarl. So you can fake out, Parting Shot, bring out Rillaboom, fake out the next turn, U-turn, fake. Like, it's crazy how much you can do with just those two Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love the Fairy Steel core, by the way, Fairy Steel Dragon core, and Grimmsnarl and Gudra Hisui, just because of the great typing. I like how they match together. Then you have Sneasler, who helps with your. Who helps considering you have grassy terrain. You unburden, you get fake out, another fake out. Crazy, so many fake outs. They're all so good. Then after you fake out, you can acrobatics because you've lost your item. You can even Terra Flying acrobatics if you need to, or if you want to. What a crazy good set. What a crazy good set of Pokemon. I love how well they pair together. Then you have a 100 speed Tailwind in Salamence that also offers really strong Draco Meteors, or really strong, and it's hard to prep against because let's say you're offering really strong Draco Meteor, or I guess not really strong, but strong Draco Meteors. If you're doing that, if your opponent preps for that, what if this week you're Dragon Dancing up and being physical? What if you have Moxie? Or what if you they have to prep for Intimidate and Moxie? Salamence just is so versatile, I think, and it fits really well on this team because you can threaten the Pokemon. You can threaten just so many Pokemon all the time with Salamence being out because it has such a huge move pool. I love it, and I love the fast Tailwind here, especially for a Pokemon like Cloyster. Oh my gosh, you have the best Pokemon in, I want to say it was 6 points, but it might have even been 5. Cloyster is crazy. It is so good. It can Shell Smash if you wanted to. It can be a physical wall if you needed to. It can it can hit hard with water moves. It can hit Skill Link, Icicle Spears. There's just so much it can do, and your opponent has to be like terrified of it. Frankly, against like let's say Urshifu, you could have Shell Armor. Now it's not getting through you. Unless you did close combats or something, and if it does, then you can Terra out of that. And you have Moltres, which I think is another fantastic Pokemon for its value. I think one of the things with this team is I think this team had got, in general, really good Pokemon for their value. Moltres, great. Cloyster, great. I didn't mention Misdreavus yet because I think it's mostly a Trick Room or a Trick Room Imprisoner. Probably Trick Room Imprison for this team because it has no real Trick Room threats. But yeah, it's really solid. You can throw an Eviolite on it. Now it's bulky. It's really bulky. And you're surviving a bunch of hits. This team is pretty heavily balanced towards physical, which is something to note. Salamence does, I feel like, want to be physical. And so then the two Pokemon that, although it can be special and be fine, Gudra wants to, if it's Iron Defense Body Pressing, it's not being special. And if it is being special, then it's throwing out Draco Meteors, which will immediately lower its special attack, but whatever. And then Moltres is special too. But so it's kind of leaning towards physical. I guess that's fine. The damage profile is fine. But the one big problem with this team, I mentioned it briefly. There is no Trick Room threats. These three are all Bagmons, in my opinion. None of them are going to be coming to any games. So, given that, you have to be able to consistently deny Trick Room, and that's not always as easy as Imprisoning. You can get Whirlwinded, and Misdreavus, can be like you need to make sure you bring Misdreavus on that day with Imprison Trick Room. So that's the thing I would be most concerned about with this team, is this team's matchup into Trick Room. Now, for Trick Room Pokemon that can be faked out, you have the fake out threats, and you have some strong Pokemon to deal with it. And even if Trick Room gets up, you can intimidate and you can generally slow them down a good bit because of how bulky your Pokemon are. You can set up screens, so Grimmsnarl won't really care about the Trick Room that much. So I don't think it's like that bad of a thing, but that is a worry with the NorCal Noibats. That being said, they're an S tier team, I think. They're quite good. They have most of what you want. Yeah. I'm putting them below the Phoenix Suns, but they're very good. Now, we have the Pittsburgh Piplups. This team is Enamorus, Heatran, Wochien, Gastrodon, Farigiraf, Glastrier, Electrode, Impidimp, Spoopa, Groupie, Varoom. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the Pokemon I think don't matter at all, and I think arguably Impidimp and Electrode don't matter at all. I think this is kind of just a 6 Pokemon team, which isn't great, but I'm interested to see how it goes. Let's see if I remove Impidimp, Electrode. Oh, not Glastrier, Electrode. This team's... Okay, right off the bat, the fighting weakness is a big deal. 1, 2, 3 Pokemon that are all weak to fighting of your main 6. And sorry if I'm being a little dismissive on these Pokemon, but like, come on, Varoom, Spoopa, I just don't believe in them at all. Or Varoom, Grookey, Spoopa, like, sure, Grookey gives Fake Out and Grassy Surge, whatever. Spoopa, I believe, gets Rage Powder, but I'm not sure it does anything else. A Rage Powder Friend Guard's real, I guess. That's a thing. Varoom does nothing. As far as I know, it's just a Bagmon. Electrode is speed, but come on, you don't want to bring Electrode to most matches. So I guess Electrode is there if you need the speed. That's important to note. But let's look at the rest of the team. This team screams Trick Room, right? So I'm not sure what Enamorus does that well on a team that is this heavily balanced towards Trick Room. It is kind of fast, being at 106 speed, which is nice. So it offers some turn 1 threat, but the rest of this team, like I said, really wants to be in Trick Room. And yes, you have a good Trick Room setter in Farigiraf, but it's not the best Trick Room setter. It's not so bulky it can't be KO'd, and I think we saw that. Well, Poppin's team did fantastically, but Grand Finals it was KO'd. There's the question of does this team consistently enough get up Trick Room? I don't think they have a Whirlwind Pokemon. And they don't have a good Fake Out user, which concerns me. Yeah, no Whirlwind, and you don't have a good Fake Out user, which concerns me. So this team's going to have trouble, I think, winning in the fast mode, and I think in the slow mode, you just have to, like, it's so hard to get up Trick Room. So you might actually end up having to bring Impidimp a lot of games, and if you're bringing Impidimp, I think you're going to have problems succeeding in Trick Room, because one of those turns has to be switching Impidimp out, and it has to be on a turn where the opponent chose not to attack an Impidimp, so they don't get free damage onto your new sweeper. That's a big problem. That being said, if this team does get consistently into Trick Room, Glastrier, Gastrodon, and even Heatran, I think, can be threats. Although I'm not sure Heatran actually wants to be in Trick Room that often. It is slow enough, I think you can justify it, though, sometimes. But definitely Gastrodon and Glastrier are happy about it. This team does have some Pokemon that are like Farigiraf, I guess, does like being in Tailwind, and Enamorus is a kind of fast Tailwind into matchups against teams that are even slower than this one, or where they don't have a really fast threat on turn 1, so they could really threaten Enamorus. But yeah, I don't love the team, for sure. So, but I don't hate it. I think I'm going to put it here in B. I think I'm going to lower the Snivies down to C, personally. It just doesn't seem in the same tier as the rest now that I think about it. Let me go... Sorry, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order and go back... I don't have the Snivy thing anymore. Whatever. I think I feel fine lowering it to C. Iron Hands... So now, moving on to the Plundering Berserkers. Iron Hands, Bronzong, Typhlosion, Sylveon, Quillfish, Hisuian, Iron Jugulus, Quagsire, Mismagius, Hoppip, Lycanroc, Dusk, and Slacking. Right off the bat, Iron Hands is fantastic, one of the best Pokemon, yada yada yada. Really good. Bronzong is a consistent Trick Room setter, also very good. Levitate's very nice, although this team doesn't have a ground type to really take advantage of it. Typhlosion has Eruption. So, okay, now I'm looking at this team. This team seems to have the same problem that I had with Sukaba's team, honestly, but a little bit mitigated, and I'll tell you why. Because... So this team's fast mode is Tailwind, Typhlosion, Eruption, I feel like most of the time. Lycanroc Dusk is another real threat, and on turn 1, it is something you have to actually care about. Its 110 speed is nothing to sneeze at. Mismagius is a okay threat at 105, and Iron Jugulus I feel like is more than just a Tailwind bot. On turn 1. It can do some other stuff. It can really threaten some stuff with its special attacking stat. So, I'm a little bit worried I'm a little bit worried that this this fast mode is one-dimensional, but I'm not so worried that I don't believe in it. And Iron Jugulus can obviously boost her speed, or it's just more versatile than, for example, the Noivern is on Sukaba's team. And also, I think Iron Hands is more versatile outside of Trick Room than like a Namorous Therian or even Ursaluna is, because Iron Hands is so bulky and there are so many different ways you can use it that it can function outside of Trick Room. Slacking is kind of weird. I don't know how it's meant to be used, really. Okay. I'm gonna skip the song. Yeah, I don't know how Slacking's meant to be used on this team. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be doing a ton to me. There's no way of getting rid of its ability, unless I'm crazy. Maybe Skill Swap. Maybe one of these Pokemon... Yeah, okay, you do have some Skill Swap Pokemon, but you don't really want to be taking Truant either, because that's not good. But this team's type chart's really good. It's really wide. I think you can bring all of these Pokemon. And I'm not as scared about the fast mode being super limited as I was with Sukaba's team, although I am still scared about that for this team. So that being said, I'm putting the Plundering Berserkers at the top of B tier. I'll put them low A. Yeah, I'll put them low A. Next, we have the Daunting Dragonites. Qianpao Dragonite, just a busted combo. Add Palafin to that. Oh my gosh. Wow, the attack stat. Crazy. Crazy. Now, build yourself a Palance team with Amoonguss Arcanine on top of the Qianpao Dragonite, and look at what you're cooking. Oh my gosh, what a crazy 5. However, let's look at the rest of the team. Zorua is not a Pokemon. I refuse to believe that it's a Pokemon. It is not good. Cyclizar is a Pokemon, but I'm not confident that it's going to be able to do much because Shed-Tail isn't that good in VGC, and it's frail. It's really frail. Reboot is not a Pokemon to me. It is just, I don't know. It feels like it's not a Pokemon. I mean, look at its stats, right? Reboot, 86 attack, 55 special attack. It's just doing nothing. Raichu Alola is a fake out, which is nice for this team. But Surge Surfer's doing nothing as an ability, and I just don't. I guess as a psychic type, it's nice because then you get some psychic coverage, and you already have a dark type, which helps justify it. But there's no fighting type to work out the fighting psychic dark core potential. Zangoose is really nice for 4 points, and Gabite is a good attack stat for 1 point. That being said, if you end up ever in a position where you want to use Gabite, look at the ice. Look at the problems you have with the ice. 4 times weakness to it on Dragonite, 2 times on Amoonguss, 2 times on Cyclizar, and now 4 times on Gabite. So you do have some resistances to make up for that. Like Palafin is obviously a resistance. Qianpao is a fake-ish resistance. Like it's bulky enough that it can be a real resistance, but most people end up just running Focus Sash. I feel like this team will run Focus Sash on it most weeks, and if you're running Focus Sash on it, an Ice-type move is just breaking the Sash, right? Arcanine is a resist to it, but it's not... And it's real. It's real, I guess, for sure. But Reboot isn't. So, there's this team might have some problems into Ice types, especially any fast freeze dries, because of Palafin. But I like the Palin score, and I like Qianpao Dragonite. I just wonder what the 6th Pokemon that's gonna come every week. And also, I wonder if teams will be able to actually find ways to consistently stop these combos, because I feel like Palafin's exploitable if you know it's coming, and you should know it's coming because every week it's 1 of 6. And it's always going to be there because you don't have 2 other viable... You don't have more than... You have 5 good Pokemon on this team, and then the rest are all bad. Is the way I'd put it. So if there's only 5 good Pokemon on this team, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot most of the time not to bring all of those 5. So now you have to ask yourself, like, can opponents properly stop these 5? And I think that there's a good chance that opponents will, over the course of the season, learn how to beat these Pokemon. How to properly lead into what you expect to be a Palafin, because if it's not leading, then you're going to have trouble stopping it. And also, the other problem with that, though, is that Qianpao Dragonite also wants to lead. So sometimes you're going to be able to catch your opponent off guard when they're expecting one or the other, and you bring the opposite. That being said, I do think this team is exploitable. I also think it is very scary. I think I would almost go as far as to say this team puts more on the opponent than it does on the coach who's piloting it. Because the coach who's piloting it, what to do it feels very simple to me. Maybe I'm wrong and this coach is going to bring out some incredible stuff, and I will be so impressed if they do. And that would be awesome. But it feels like you can run standard Palafin, Amoonguss, Arcanine, and standard Dragonite, Qianpao, and have a good time with this team. And then it's up to the opponent to find ways to use their team to stop the standard stuff that works really well. I think that can happen. So I'm not as big a fan of this team as other people are, perhaps. That being said, I do think it's good. So I'm going to put it middle of A. Yeah. Now, let's look at the crazy Cramorants. Indeedee Armarouge, Indeedee female Armarouge, Zapdos Galar, Meowscarada, Tatsugiri, Clodsire, Magnezone, Tauros, Mimikyu, Zorua, Spidops. So now, you have Indeedee Armarouge is the, core. So here's the problem I'm having. I really like Indeedee Armarouge. but I think it sets up for hard Trick Room. And the reason it sets up for hard Trick Room and not just a Trick Room mode that well is because Armarouge is a Trick Room setter that also puts on huge offensive pressure. And I think when you have that means you don't have to take the turn to switch them out to get a lot of benefit out of it. And so you want to be like a harder Trick Room team. But this team doesn't scream hard Trick Room, it screams a bunch of different modes. And that's not the end of the world, because you can still have a hard Trick Room mode. But this team's Trick Room doesn't scream hard Trick Room, because Clodsire is your is your slowest Pokemon, it's your ground type. And it is a Trick Room Abuser, but it's a Trick Room Abuser with a 75 attack stat. That's not great. And then you have Magnezone, who is a genuine Trick Room Abuser with 130 special attack, but it's 60 speed, so it's not the slowest. It's not what you love to see. And those just Armarouge, Magnezone, and Clodsire don't feel like it's enough for me to really love the Trick Room mode. Now, you do have a fast mode that I do quite like. Meowscarada is a really good, really fast Pokemon. Tauros at 110 speed with Intimidate. That's really nice for sure. Zapdos Galar has Tailwind if you need it. It's also just got really strong stabs, hard to break through, good Pokemon. And then Mimikyu kind of sits in between, where it can be a Trick Room setter, it can be fast in Tailwind, it can be a Trick Room Abuser if your opponent's fast enough. There's so many different things it can do. So I do like the Mimikyu here as kind of like a 96 speed Pokemon that's flexible. But I don't love the Indeedee Armarouge on the rest of this team. I also don't think that it covers for the weaknesses of Indeedee Armarouge that well. Obviously, Dark being Dark types. The only Dark resists... the Dark Resist. Zorua does not count as a Dark Resist. Meowscarada doesn't count as a Dark Resist, it's too frail. And Zapdos Galar it does, but then you have one Dark Resist and you have two Pokemon that are really weak to Dark and that you would really appreciate more Dark Resist for. I also don't love Tatsugiri on this team. Storm Drain doesn't feel like it's doing a lot. Like, this team isn't really that weak to waters. It's a good Pokemon, so it's not the end of the world. Never gonna say Tatsugiri's like that bad, but it doesn't feel like you're getting the most out of it here. So with all that being said, I think this team is fine. I think this team is a B tier team, but I don't love the construction personally. Yeah, I'm gonna put it just above Sukaba's Grandma's Togekiss. And then this is the last team, the Paldean Pancakes. So let's look. Tornadus, boom. One of the best Pokemon in the format. Florges, Baxcalibur, Hariyama, Samurott Hisuian, Sliggoo Hisuian, Glimmora, Palisand, Electrode Hisuian, Hatterene, and Snover. Oh my god, so many Hisuians. So, let's look. This team does well into... This team's type chart looks overall pretty good. All these Pokemon can come to different weeks. Snover is probably going to be the one who comes to the least, just because it really only seems there to boost up Baxcalibur. And it's not like Baxcalibur needs the defense boost, and it's not like it benefits that much from snow because it's not throwing out blizzards. Ghosts is fake. The Fairy, ooh, this is tough. The Fairy weakness is really bad. Only having Glimmora, which in and of itself does not have the best special defense, although it's a common Assault Vest user, so that's fine. Or I guess I don't know what I'm talking. Well, and Fairy moves are often special attacks, so the fact that it's not like a super bulky special wall even is going to hurt when there's all these Fairy attacks coming at you because you have such a weakness. Baxcalibur, Hariyama, and Samurott all being weak and all being common Pokemon for this team to bring is tough. Steel types are less of a big deal, although still kind of a big deal because these three Pokemon, Florges, Baxcalibur, and Glimmora, should all be coming to a lot of games, whereas Sliggoo, Hisuian shouldn't be coming to that many, and Samurott will probably come to a good amount, but not as many as the others. So the Steel weakness, if against like a Golden Go or something, could prove to be a problem for this team. But I mean, but let's look at what it does well. This team has really fast Tailwind. It can prevent other teams from getting up Tailwind with Taunt on Tornadus, with Prankster, and it has a Florges. It has super strong special attacker in Florges, super strong physical attacker in Baxcalibur. It's got Fake Out with Hariyama. Like, the tools are here. Hisuian Electrode's also a really fast Pokemon to get to that really upper speed tier, and it's got the... I don't like Trick Room on this team either. Palossand's fine for Trick Room, but Snover, Sliggoo, and Hatterene... well, I guess Hariyama's also good for Trick Room. Maybe this team's Trick Room is actually just good enough, with Palossand and Hariyama. But its setter is Hatterene, right? There's no other Trick Room setter unless I'm wrong. Yep. So if Hatterene's your Trick Room setter, I don't think you want to be going to Trick Room that much. Although this team is pretty good in Trick Room with Hariyama and Palossand. So overall, like, this team, like I mentioned before, I think this team has the tools. It's got the fast mode. It's got a really great Pokemon in Tornadus. It has the slow mode. It's got some setup with Sliggoo if it wants, for instance. Spikes are really good, and poison spikes are really good. So it's got the hazard stuff too, which is really interesting. And Baxcalibur can hit like a truck when you have good speed control, and you have the best speed controller in the format. The one thing is you have a team whose defense is overall weak, and you don't have Intimidate, which is that's going to prove to be a problem for this team. I think it's probably not the end of the world, but it is something to note. So yeah, this team is ultimately a B tier team to me. Probably here, I think. Yeah, so I think, and I'm going to throw the Pittsburgh Piplups down here as well. Overall, I think that I think the conferences are about evenly matched in terms of strength of teams. And I'm really interested to see if my predictions and my analysis holds true to what happens in these games. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't insult your team too much. And if I did, please prove me wrong. I would love to see how you decide to play your team and how you ultimately show that you are the better drafter than I am. Because you knew all along that what you had going was going to work, and I couldn't see the vision. That would be amazing. Let me learn by proving me wrong. Thank you for watching. I had a lot of fun making these tier lists. I hope to do this every season. And good luck. Good luck in the coming weeks with the 10th season of the VBLS.